Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. We're so lucky to have Abbi Waxman here with us today. Hi, Abbi.
Hey guys, I don't know how lucky you are, but
Yes, we are. Another library reads pick for you recently. I saw two for adult assembly required, which is super exciting, as well as already Nina Hill. And then I heard also that you're in the Library Reads Hall of Famer now, right?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, no, it's the most exciting thing that's happened possibly ever. No, it's very exciting. I didn't know that such a thing existed, and then suddenly I was in it. So it was thrilling.
Oh, it's so great. We're very excited to have all of you here tonight. Thank you for supporting the library and for supporting author events like this. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Abbi, and then we're going to ask Abbi some questions and all of that. If you have a question for Abbi or for us as well, if you're having issues with the Zoom features, you can put them in the chat for us. So Abbi Waxman, she's hailed by the New York Times as both irreverent and thoughtful. Abbi Waxman's novels feature strong, quirky, and often bookish heroines that face real-world issues, such as depression and relationship struggles. Born and raised in England, Waxman worked as a copywriter and then as a creative director at various advertising agencies in London and New York. Eventually, she quit advertising, had 3 kids, and started writing books, largely in order to get a moment's peace. She's the author of 4 novels, The Garden of Small Beginnings, Other People's Houses, I Was Told It Would Get Easier, and her award-winning New York Times bestseller, The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. Her forthcoming book, Adult Assembly Required, hits shelves on May 17th. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Carrie for our first questions, unless there's anything you'd like to add to that, Abbi?
No, I think that all sounds highly implausible, and yet it is, of course. There's not much I can say about it.
Okay, great. Carrie's my friend and colleague here at the Algonquin Area Public Library. Thanks, Carrie, for moderating with me tonight.
Yes, of course.
I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Well, as Jennifer said, thank you so much for coming, Abbi. All of us here are huge fans. And we recently, one of our book clubs, we have 9 book clubs that meet here at the Algonquin Public Library. It's ridiculous. I do 2.5 because I only do one every other month. So that's 2.5 that I do. Jennifer does 1. But one of ours that it was the Library Reads book club. So they read all library read books. So they just read your awesome book, The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. And I know so many people have probably asked you, and I know so many people, me included, we are all Nina Hill. I feel like every person in here feels like she is a part of Nina Hill. Where did you get the idea of Nina from? Is she you? I feel like she is. I don't know.
No, she is and she isn't. She was inspired when I was on a book tour for my second book, the name of which, Other People's Houses, sorry. I was going up and down the West Coast. It's not like a big tour, exciting tour. I think just like chunk, few bookstores, but it's really fun. And all of these bookstores were staffed by mostly young women, much like yourselves, who were snappy dresses, who were really into books, were a little bit quirky and weird, and were just really interesting women, right? All just these interesting young women. And they wore these really cute cardigans. And I don't know, I just was like a little bit smitten with all of them. They're all just so cute and adorable. And I was like, I'm going to write a book where that girl is the hero. Because often that girl is the, wisecracking sidekick or the, the nerdy best friend. And it's such a yawn. So I
Yes.
wanted to make her front and center.
You definitely hit the nail on the head with it. Because I finished reading it and I put it down and it was like, I'm Nina Hill. So, and then every single person that has came in here, I'm Nina Hill. And I'm like, no, I am Nina Hill. And then, we end up fighting over it. So you did a really good job with how she is.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes. And then, so her personality of being the introvert and then the book nerd hits hits hard with all of us. And you had so many great references of books and movies. The trivia team's names were, I think that was the first time I actually laughed out loud at a book, was reading You're a Quizzard, Harry. That was absolutely amazing. were these some of your favorite things that you put in, or was it just, you know, do you just go with the flow and this is what you think Nina likes, or how do you decide that?
No, that is all completely selfish. So Nina likes all the same things that I like. So in that respect, we are the same person. Like, she strangely has read all the same books and seen all the same movies.
Weird how that happens.
So yeah, so think references and stuff that I make, that she makes in the thing, these are all things that I love or care about. Like William Saroyan is, one of my favorite writers, or she, references that she makes to things that she watches are all things that I love too. Yeah. So that was just a fun, sort of selfish, pleasurable thing to write,
And being the author, you can totally do that. We'll let it slide.
You can just
you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And then another great thing about her is, I mean, it's not great because her anxiety and her panic attacks. I'm a sufferer from anxiety. That really, really hit home with me. I mean, I read that section and it was like, I know exactly what this feels like.
Right.
I'm really glad that you put that in. I mean, is that from personal experience? I know that's kind of personal, but is that from personal experience, or?
Yeah, I mean, I suffered a lot from anxiety when I was younger. And had lots and lots of panic attacks and things like that. And then for me personally, it got a lot better when I stopped drinking so much.
Yes, that does help.
that was a bit of a shocking revelation to me. But yeah, it turned out that everything improved a great deal when I stopped drinking constantly. So yeah, so that's my story though. But yeah, you never forget, I don't think, or I have never forgotten that feeling.
Nope.
And to this day, 25, 30 years after I stopped drinking too much, I still, if I feel any of that, the beginnings of that, like the ends of my fingers get tingly or any of those things, I'm right back there, like it is, I think it's a very sort of base of the brain thing, like a very basic animal kind of experience where you really feel like your body is kind of taking over and your brain is fritzing out. And so I think that's it's an unpleasant experience that a lot of people have had. And even if you've only had it once or twice, I think it sticks with you. And then anxiety, which for me at least sort of started to get bundled with it, because then I would become anxious that I was going to have a panic attack, and then it just spirals, right? And you get into this horrible sort of trap, and your life gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And so with Nina, what I wanted to write about though was the fact that she still has a life. She is not, there is a tendency, I think, for people to think of mental illness or things like that as like character traits rather than just something that you're experiencing. Yes. Right? She's a woman who has anxiety. She's not an anxious person, and you see her in many other contexts in the story, in the course of the book. You see she's totally on top of her game, right? She knows what she's doing at work. She has loads of friends. She has book clubs. There are situations that make her uncomfortable, and in those situations she experiences anxiety. But I really wanted to write a character that is just one aspect. It is not a defining characteristic of her,
Yes, totally. I know exactly what you're talking about. I could not do her trivia bar scene thing. That's anxiety galore right there for me. Just thinking.
And I think what's interesting for Nina is, I think specifically to her, the thinking of the trivia, the focusing on really works for her as a way to cope with her anxiety as well, right? So I think if she wasn't doing a trivia thing, she probably wouldn't be in the bar. Yeah, right? But because she's there with a purpose and she's so competitive, people are very layered. You can have anxiety and also be incredibly courageous and jump out of an airplane. But then you go to a bar and you're terrified. Like, we're all very, no one is.
Yes, there's many layers of us. Yes. And as I say too, medication works wonders.
It really does. I'm a sturdy proponent of.
Me too.
Living through chemistry for sure.
Yes. And one last question with Nina, is that amazing family tree you thought of her, how she really was raised by her nanny and her mom was all over the world, and then all of a sudden, bam, here's your dad and he actually had a lot of money and you have a family. Where did that come from? Like that idea? It's so unique, I feel like.
Well, it was actually, thank you. I think it used to be, I feel in the last few years, this story has become more and more common, actually. And it's funny because I started writing the book a while ago, obviously. And then over the course of writing it, all these sort of 23andMe stories started coming out.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my God, I have 58 cousins and I'm related to this other person. So I think it was sort of in the air. But it was literally inspired by a good friend of mine, her son. So she's my age, so I'm 52. Next week, so 51.
Oh, happy early birthday.
And so her son, who is probably now 12 or 13, is the same almost exact age as his own uncle, because her father married a much younger woman much later in life. And that kind of thing happens more and more and more and more, right? Where you have a family where you have multiple, basically if you have a dad that marries multiple times and keeps marrying younger women who keep having children, you inevitably end up with this kind of tree where you'll have an uncle who's younger than a cousin who's older than, it's like, it's just the way it works.
Yeah.
And my degree was actually in anthropology. And so I was just always interested in family, in just how these things fit together. And is someone really your uncle if they're younger than you?
Because, how does that work?
Because uncle suggests all kinds of other things, right? It's not just a family relationship. The word actually means something different. It means like someone who's going to teach you or someone who's going to be, more paternal type character. So if that person is 4 and that's your uncle, so from that point of view, both from language, from anthropology, and just from being nosy about other people's families, I find that's what started me off on it. I thought it was very unique. I loved it. So I also just want to send out a reminder to everybody. If you have any questions or anything, put that in the good old chat box. And I know a lot of you are from the Library Reads Book Club. I saw Patty. She moderates it. She was one of our great librarians here at Algonquin. So I know Patty's got questions. So feel free to put that right there in the box for us. So it was my idea to get you to come, Abbi, because I read your book, The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. And then I saw in the back, if you want a signed book plate, email me and I'll send you a book plate. And I thought, okay, I'll try this. You got one?
I did get one. Within 5 minutes, you emailed me back and I was just blown away. And my brother, of course, was like, it's not her. I'm like, yes, it's her. So publicist, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's just me.
I wanted to share with my book plate. Mine's personalized. Sorry, guys. Haha.
And how long did you have to wait? 3 months? I'm like,
not even. I want to say like a month or two.
Yeah,
I mean, it got here. It was a lot faster than I really thought it was going to be. So thank you. So when it got up to pretty,
seriously, I have this whole system. It seemed like such a good idea at the beginning, and I was like, who's gonna want? Give me one, it's gotten to be a little bit more frequent, and every time it's so awesome that I'm like, yes. It really is very nice to hear from readers. It's the best part of
yes. And then my bookmark also reminds me of you. Piss off, I'm reading.
That's
so
perfect.
I mean, it's totally.
It often takes me too long. It often will take me a month to get, because I'll wait till I have a few and then I'll do them together.
That
and
makes sense.
A whole big sheboygan. But
totally makes sense. So when they were thinking of an author to get here right away, you got to try Abbi. I mean, she was so personal and reached out. We got to try to get her here. So thank you again for doing that. Not all authors do that. I think they I feel like they forget about us. I don't know.
I'm like, oh, I can stop working for a second and write back to this lovely person here.
Yes, which I mean, without us, you wouldn't be where you are. So we're very, very happy that you do take the time to do that. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. And then, so we are having a little contest. Jennifer put up a link to there. We actually have signed copies that Abbi sent us. I'm actually really jealous of these because I own a rabbit. So too bad I can't switch that out with my signed one. Kidding.
I do love a rabbit.
Yes, Leo is my baby, I call him. And I think people get really confused because I'm like, my baby's in a cage. So yeah, that's probably not a good idea to keep saying. So yes, if you are interested in that. And then we also have an ARC 2 that we're going to be doing with adult assembly required. This is her next one that will be coming out. So go ahead, fill that out. You can win some great things. And again, Abbi, thank you for taking the time to send those to us.
My pleasure.
Very exciting. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer, who's going to talk a little bit about your writing process, because I know so many people have questions on how do you become a writer?
Okay.
So on to Jennifer.
Thanks, Carrie. So I know this is a question you probably get quite a bit, but a lot of people wondered what initially inspired you to pursue writing and what was your path to publication like?
Well, I have I don't know if I have it's not really strange, but my mother is a writer. So it's really it was the family thing. So it's sort of like, you know, possibly if my mother had been a brain surgeon, we would not be here today. But I would be a very, very, very poor brain surgeon. So it's probably just as well that she was a murder mystery writer. But so yeah, so I sort of grew up thinking that that's what mothers did. You know, that you grow up, you have kids, you read a lot, you grow up, you have kids, and then you write a lot. Like that seemed to be how it went. And so it was sort of always what I thought I would probably end up doing, but I sort of tried to do lots of other things to avoid it. But and I went and worked in advertising for a long time, which is a really, really good place to practice writing, actually. So being an advertising copywriter is, or a journal, anything where you actually write for a living constantly, and where people who don't write tear apart your work, is excellent practice for being a novelist, because you have to be critical of your own work, and you have to be able to just let go of it if it's crap. And it will be crap, and it mostly is crap. And so I wrote 2 or 3 complete books that were utter garbage before I got to start writing The Garden of Small Beginnings, which is the one that eventually got published. So it took a long time, and you have to just keep writing. And then I guess that was the question, right? That was my process. Oh, and then to publication, I just got lucky, which is, again, not much you can do about that, but you have to have work to show. So you have to keep writing so that when you get lucky and someone's like, oh, I really like this thing, do you have anything else to show me? You can say, why, yes, I do. So you have to be prepared, you know, as whatever it was said, Pasteur or someone, that fortune favors the prepared mind, right? So yes, I got lucky, and a friend of mine was like, oh, I have a job that I can't do. Do you want to take this job on? It was a ghostwriting job for a celebrity. So I wrote a book for a celebrity that doesn't have my name on it. And then, so I did that, and then that agent wanted to see my own work. And so that's how I got my first agent. In the end, I didn't stay with her, and I went and got a second agent, and that's how I got published. So, you know, there are many, many steps to the process, but the most important thing is to just keep writing so that you have material to show when someone asks to see it. Like, that is, you just have to write every day so that there's stuff.
No, that is great advice. I think it's wonderful to hear too that you struggled a couple times before.
Oh, for sure. And
yeah.
I sent out the first book, The Garden of Small Beginnings. I sent out, I think, 50, you know, just cold to agents, and got nothing back, and then another 50. Like, you just do. And then, of course, it's because somebody knows somebody who knows somebody, and they're like, oh, you should read my friend's book, she's really funny. And that is also nothing to do with anything. It's just luck, right? It's just luck. So yeah, I'm grateful for that opportunity.
I think it's really cool. So a lot of people also wondered, what is the first book that you read that maybe inspired you to want to be a writer, or maybe like a book that changed your life, or something that influenced you in terms of becoming a writer in the first place?
Well, it's a tough question to answer, because I just always wrote, like I always wrote stories and stuff when I was a kid. And so, but what was important and what was lucky is that because my mother was a writer, she always read my stories with a degree of seriousness, even if they were like, even when I was 5 or 6. She would read the story and read, oh, this is great, you know, and it wasn't like she was pulling out her red pencil or anything, but she would be like, oh, you know, I really like, this is a great story. I really like this bit when you did this thing, right? So we always just, and I do it with my own kids when we're reading and talking about movies or there's just sort of just a love of analyzing why something works on the page, right? Why is that funny? Why is that gripping? So even if we were reading, and if she was reading to me, which she did constantly all the time when I was a kid, and my sister too, she would stop in the middle of the story and say, well, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think? I'm not going to turn the page. What do you think is going to happen? And so that kind of like just constant interest in what a narrative was and what the story was going to become. And well, what if it hadn't? Okay, well, that's how she ended that. How would you have ended that? Like that kind of conversation. It's just a really nerdy house. It's just like a book nerdy house. Other people probably talk about football and, like, I don't know what other people talk about, but my family, we all talked about words and stories and books and stuff. We were not very sporty. It rained a lot in England, so there really wasn't there were only 4 channels on the TV at the time. Like, what else could you do? So we, but then early writers who make me inspired are the classics. P.G. Wodehouse. If I'm in a slump and I can't write anymore, I go and I read P.G. Wodehouse, who I think is the funniest writer in the English language and has the most fun with it. The language is so fun, and he just is having such a good time with the words, and it always makes me want to go do that. And then actually the American writer who followed L. Frank Baum in writing the Oz books, Ruth Plumley Thompson, she heard those Oz books because my mum is American. She's from Detroit. So I actually grew up in England, but being read those books. And she's another one who like plays with the language, and like is constantly punning and like just doing weird things with words and ideas that are just right up my street, So those two, the combination of those two writers were really what sort of started me off wanting to try and do that. You don't achieve it, but you try, like that's the goal.
What a cool way to grow up, I tell you.
Yeah, I was very lucky. There was all kinds of other crap. Like, don't get me wrong. Like it was no party, but it was great from that point of view. Like, it was a good house. And when she told me quite recently, oh, by the way, did I tell you I sold all the books because they moved house? She's like, yeah, I sold all the mysteries. So I was like, what did you want? And she was like, yeah, there was like boxes and boxes. I had to hang up and like walk away. I was like, oh my God. She's like, what, you were going to ship them from England? Really? No, it's okay.
That's funny.
But yeah. And Agatha Christie, and murder mysteries. Like I'll read Agatha Christie all day long. That's what I did through the whole pandemic. I started at the beginning and I read in order of being written all Agatha Christie, like for the whole 2 years, basically. Because I'm like, I gotta have something to do.
Oh, yeah. It's awesome. Yeah. I think reading got a lot of us through a lot of what was going on the past few years. So, and I know for me, I picked up a couple of your books that I hadn't read during the pandemic.
That's always what I'm trying to write, is like comfy. That's what I want to write, is the kind of stuff I love to read, which is nothing really terrible happens, or if things terrible have happened, people are pulling it together, and everyone's just doing the best they can, and mostly the people are quite nice to each other, because that's what I would rather read about, if you get my drift.
No kidding. No, I totally.
There's a time and place for a serial killer hackathon. Don't get me wrong, but for like some kind of terribly porny kind of, I don't know, thing. We all have moods for all of these things, but my sweet spot is the crap. I had a terrible day, and I want a cup of tea and a bowl of ice cream and a book that is completely, soft. That's what I'm going for.
I think that's great. And I know a lot of us relate. That's why we're here today. And that's why we read your book in book club, and why you're a library reads author. And
I hope so.
Yes. So what's your best writing advice for new writers who are wanting to be published, or who are wanting to get into the writing world of fiction?
I think that the most important question actually to ask yourself when you decide that you want, well, first of all, what do you want? Do you want to be a writer, or do you want to write? Because those are two very different things. If you want to write every day, then nothing will stop you. If all you want to do is be thought of as a writer or be a published writer, you're going to find it almost impossible, because there's so much boring, heavy lifting in writing books that has nothing to do with you know, I don't know what people think, what the dream idea of writers are, because I grew up with one in the house, I knew that there was an awful lot of this going on and an awful lot of like constant. So I knew it wasn't easy. I just didn't know what else you were supposed to do. So it's, you know, being a writer, like doing things like this, like talking to librarians and readers, is like, this is top icing, sprinkle level stuff, right? This is so infrequent and such a small part of what being a writer is as a job. But this is mostly what people see of writers, right? It's not like people come and stand behind me in the coffee shop while I'm tearing my hair out, right? So no one sees the process, they only see the product, which is always a problem, right? And so if nothing has stopped you now, up until now, from writing every day or several times a day, you're already a writer. So you don't need to worry about that. If you don't write, you're probably not a writer. Maybe there's something else. And maybe if you want to tell stories, then maybe there's another way. But if you're not literally sitting down and actually like physically writing things, then don't do it. Because there's huge, like I'd say 60% of writing a novel happens after you've written it first, and then you start rewriting and moving things around. And it's really mind-numbingly boring at times, and also hard. Like you'll say, so an editor might say, "Ooh, how about another sister?" And you're like, "Sure, let's try that." Then you go back, you put another sister in, and everything changes, right? Like everything changes. So you suddenly remember that this sister is suddenly in every room that this other person is in. So you have to go make sure she's in the room. And does she say something? No. Why is she in the room? So you have to give her something to say. And then, you know, so even the smallest change is actually a huge amount of heavy lifting and like cutting and pasting and, you know, taking a piece from here and putting it over here. And then, so if you don't enjoy that sort of Tetris-y part of editing, again, this is not a good job for you.
That's really good advice. I really think, and writing every day, I've heard other people say that before, and that is,
or at least,
you know,
and not just that if you can't write every day, but if you want to write every day and you're a little bit thwarted because maybe you can't get to 10 minutes to yourself, keep going, because you'll still get there. But if you're just like, I really wish I had my name on a book, get a sticker, go stick your name on a book, and then go find a different job, because it's not a good job. That's what you're looking for.
Oh, I think that's really great advice. I can't imagine, when I think of reading The Bookish Life of Nina Hill or even Other People's Houses, then your editor comes in and says, add another sister. Those two already have a great cast of characters.
Yeah, if anything, my sister says that the way I write a book is I start with, I feel really great about it. Then I start to feel really bad about it. Then I start throwing extra characters in, apparently. So I start throwing extra characters to solve the problem. There's not enough people here, obviously. So then I throw a few more characters in. Then she says I write the rest of it, and then I go back and I kill all the characters that I added in the first place because I didn't need them. But apparently that's my process, is adding too many characters, and then I take them all out and then I add them. But I need to come up with a better process, because it is exhausting. It is not a good process at all. I need to work on it, because it's very tiring.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome hearing that other people struggle. Somebody successful like you struggles. I mean,
yeah, it's not a hard job. I mean, it's not like a real job. I'm not carrying heavy things or like saving people's lives, right? So it's not that real a job, but it is not as easy as I would like it to be. I'd really like it to be ever so much easier than it is. And I keep thinking it's going to get easier, but it doesn't. In fact, it's getting harder with every book. So I may be out of ideas. There could be nothing else in there.
Oh, hey, at least that inspired one of your titles, right? I was told it would get easier.
Right, exactly. Oh my God. And that title, let me tell you, that we must have sent 200 titles for that book. It was craziness. I'm terrible at titles. That one, every time anyone says that title, I have a little like,
Okay. That's hilarious. I was going to say, on your website and in interviews, you always talk about how you have a real love for libraries and independent bookstores.
I do.
And this is often seen in the settings and the characters of your books. I don't think I've read a single book of yours that doesn't at least talk a little bit about the independent bookstore in town.
I do love, I mean, also I'm old, so I grew up where there were mostly independent bookstores. Like there wasn't a lot, there weren't big chains. The first chain in England, I think, was Waterstones. And it's still, you know, that seemed quite like a good thing at the time. And then, you know, it became less of a good thing. But I like all bookstores. I'm not going to diss Barnes and Noble. I like any bookstore. I like any big space where there's books in it. So it could just be a warehouse with a pile of books. I'd be totally happy, right? So all bookstores are good, but independent bookstores, I think the people who work at them tend to have more interest in actually reading. And so they will often have read the books and have good advice and recommendations. And librarians, obviously, like a big part of a librarian's job is actually to think about what are books like this, you know, like this whole idea that if you liked, if someone can come up to you and say, I really enjoyed Dostoevsky, and you can say, well, you're in the wrong country. And then you can say, no, but seriously, that was a joke. That was a joke. And you could say, well, then you're going to like Tolstoy. And I'm sorry for you. And it's going to be a long, hard winter, but we'll get through it, is what you'd have to say to that person. But anyway, so those skills, I think, like writers don't have those skills. I don't necessarily know what other people should read if they told me they liked such and such. So only librarians and booksellers have that particular set of skills, which makes you sound a little bit like Liam Neeson right at the end there, like a very particular set of skills. There's binding, book repair.
Yes. So have libraries and bookstores in particular influenced the way you write, or the settings of how you write also?
Well, I tend to write characters that read, right? I mean, in general, I tend to write characters I just tend to write characters that I like, right? I mean, this is the thing. And a criticism that has been leveled at my work by both members of my own family and actual critics is that everyone is so nice. Like, why is everybody so nice in all your books? Like, everybody gets along. Sometimes there's a little bit of conflict, but in the end, everybody's friends. And I hear that. That is a valid criticism, but that is a conscious choice on my part to only write about people I actually like or who are bad in a way that's funny. Because if it's funny, then it's funny. And that's that. But generally, yeah, if you want like, but you know what's funny, if I could digress for a moment, that no one ever goes up to, well, they wouldn't because I think he's dead now, but no one ever goes up to Clancy and says, enough with the fucking submarines, like enough, stop, right? Like, can you not write about something else? Like, what the heck? But they come up to female writers, particularly domestic fiction like me or romantic fiction all the time, and are like, oh, you know, this is your genre, you know. It's like, really? Anyway, that was a digression. It makes me so annoyed. But yes, they are. My books are all very similar. They're all like intelligent, curious women running into problems and sorting them out. Because that to me is about as heroic as it gets, right? Like every day, you know, I feel pretty damn heroic by the end of the day. Didn't stab anyone, haven't set fire to anything, and have something in the fridge. Like if I get through the day and I've achieved those things, then we're all laughing, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm interested in those daily heroics rather than the actual heroics, you know, swords, shit like that.
No, real life is hard. It makes sense. There's quite a few other authors that I could reference when you're talking about Clancy, but I will not.
Right, yeah. And again, this is not me dissing Clancy. Like you do you, right? Obviously the guy woke up, thought submarines, and just kept thinking it all day, you know, and that's good for him. He found a niche, you know. Other people wake up and think about serial killers. I don't know, but
that's hilarious. Somebody said they wanted a t-shirt with that on it.
What on it?
What's with the submarines, Clancy?
Yeah, right. What is with the submarines? Yeah, we should get out of print to make that t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool. So a couple of quick fire questions about your writing process. Do you have a particular time of day or atmosphere that's good for writing? Oh, morning.
In the mornings. Sorry, I'm an early.
No, you're fine.
In the morning person. In an ideal world, literally 4:30 till like 9, and then done. But that never happens because I have these children, and they want to be driven to school and places like that. So I don't get to do that very often. But in an ideal world, I would wake up and go straight to work. Well, in an ideal world, I actually wouldn't get out of the bed. I would just go straight to work in the bed, but that's not my life currently.
Great. How much research do you need to do for your books in general?
Well, because I'm not writing like historical fiction or something that requires literal research, then what? This will be one of my children. Excuse me. Go away. Go away. Sorry, everybody. That was my 18-year-old who took an AP today, and so she's probably calling me to tell me something exciting. It's all right. It'll still be exciting later. Sorry about that. What were we talking about before? I was so rudely.
No, that's okay. How much research do you need to do?
Yeah, research. So the thing is, I love the research, and so I do it. I do it continuously as I'm writing. So any excuse. So Nina was actually not so great for research, except for researching like more trivia about the things I was already interested in. So that was really good. But like the book I'm writing right now, she's a zoologist, the protagonist. And so I'll write something and I'll be like, oh, and blah, 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 snails. And then I'll like, well, now I have to stop and look up snails. And so then I'll go look up snails for like an hour and go off down some really strange snail thing. And yeah, so as much as possible, continuously throughout is basically my research approach. Any excuse to stop and be certain that you could have watched X movie in Y city in X year, because that'll ruin, I'll lose like an hour or two there happily. Just walking.
That's great. It sounds very organic.
Organic.
How do you deal with writer's block?
Rudely. I'm very dismissive of it. No, I don't. I hate it. It happens all the time. There's nothing you can do except just keep sitting down and writing. There's nothing for it. There's some days it just doesn't come.
That's good. Have you ever had a setback, artistic or otherwise, that helped shape the trajectory you're on now as a writer?
I don't know if I would say that it shaped the trajectory I'm now, but I will give you a good story of a failure that I've experienced recently, which is the book which is about to come out, Adult Assembly Required, is the entire second version of the book that was supposed to come out last year. So that book was due in 2020. There was stuff going on in 2020 and I missed my deadline. I didn't miss the deadline. I wrote a book by deadline that was not good enough. So this is after 4 published books, you know, in numerous books that never saw the light of day. Like, it is so easy to think that you have it and not have it. I'm here to tell you. So I handed in the book and the editor is sort of like, yeah, it's just not. And so she gave it back and I did some rewriting and I handed it back. And then she and the agent were both like, you know, this book is just not where it needs to be. And you don't want it to go out bad, which I didn't, obviously. And we'll kick it for a year. So that was a really big setback for me because it really made me question my own sense of judgment about my work. Because I'm like, well, I thought this was okay and it wasn't okay. So, but ultimately, as with all these things, it's good because I went back, I rewrote the book. My editor is fantastic. She always makes the work so much better. So it wasn't like I didn't believe them. I believed them completely. I was just like, shit, like, damn it. And then, and so I rewrote it and I'm very happy with the book that is coming out, although it is incredibly sweet. And I'm worried that it's going to throw people into some kind of like diabetic shock. Like, it is so sweet in parts that I'm just like, oh my God, because that's just how I was feeling during the pandemic. You know, I just really leaned into the schmaltz because that's what I needed at the time. So, but yeah, so that was a big setback and that was quite recent. And it's been, you know, it was sort of interesting to experience that. And that's my kid again. She's texted me.
Yo, there's no prom at that location.
Yeah, I'm actually live talking to people at a library right now.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Hi.
Oh my God. Yeah, so they have she's gone to buy a prom dress and to Nordstrom's and they don't have prom at that Nordstrom's. So that's That's what's
Oh,
going on.
lovely.
The minute I'm done here, that's what I'm doing.
Well, at least it's a fun job, right? I was gonna also ask, is there anything as a writer that you wish you would have known years ago that you know now? Either about the writing world or about
No, although
you yourself?
I wish I had appreciated how great my tips were in my 20s.
Okay.
That's what I would like to say. Like, and honestly, looking back now, that is what I wish more than almost anything in my life. Because at the time I was like, yeah.
I had to roll that over in my head for a second. Carrie was like down on the floor.
But that honestly, that's when I look back in my life and I think, what I wish I had known when I was younger. It's that I wish I had appreciated my own exquisiteness at that time. And I say that to all of you out there. You're all exquisite. You don't realize.
Awesome. So just one more question in this section. I know most of your books are set primarily in California, but even though you've lived in California for a long time, you grew up in England. Did growing up in England inspire how you write now?
Probably. Sometimes I just like to answer just a word. Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, it's English people do have there is a different sense of humor, and there is a tendency to just make jokes all the time, and in general to find humor in the worst possible things. So that attitude definitely influences my work, just because that's who I am, right? But no, I don't think, I think I've been here longer than I lived there. So I actually came when I was 21. So I crossed over for several years ago.
Okay.
So I feel really at least half, if not 2/3 American at this point, even if the 1/3 that's left is the one that's speaking. Because that's,
Well, I just thought it was interesting being a huge Jane Austen fan and reading through reviews and comments and things about your books. How many authors, reviewers, and just people that have read your book on Goodreads refer to you as a modern day Jane Austen, and that you give them serious like Lizzie Bennet vibes, especially in Nina Hill. And I just think that's so interesting, thinking that, oh, she is from England too. So
although it's shocking, and I get, it makes me deeply uncomfortable when people say that, because of course that's like, it's just, yeah, it's extremely flattering. It is inaccurate, and you know, there is no one who comes close. And it's, but the thing about her books that you could say is true of many other books, mine included, is that she's really very, very interested in the minute differences between what you say and what you think, right? And you could argue that that is the landscape of the novel always, right? Is actually the internal landscape, right? But she was sort of one of the first writers of that in history at that time in our culture, because obviously other cultures had literature going back much further than we did. But anyway, to have this sort of interior life of a female character, to, you know, to sort of have this, Lizzie is very aware that what she's saying and what she's thinking, there's a gap, right? Because that's the nature of the culture she lived in at the time. And so maybe the parallel with Nina is that Nina is a character who's also sort of trying to maintain the correct front while dealing with the fact that on the inside, she doesn't feel like that's, you know, she's actually quite nervous, or she can't stop herself from talking or something, you know. So if anything, I would say she's much less confident than Lizzie Bennet. But Lizzie Bennet has a whole socioeconomic problem to deal with that Nina doesn't. Don't get me started actually on the Lizzie Bennet thing, like in general, Austen. I really, really like Austen. So like we could talk about that for hours. That's a whole separate thing. That's a whole conversation.
okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the poll right now. If everyone would just go ahead and fill that out for me.
Oh, do I get to?
I think you do too.
Oh, I can't pick a favorite.
There you go.
I can't answer a poll about myself. I can't. That's silly.
Well, that's okay. I'm going to turn it over to Carrie for the next questions. If all of you could just fill out that poll before we log off tonight, just so we can get an idea of attendance, and so you can tell us about your favorite Abbi Waxman book. Okay. Okay, I'm going to turn over to you, Carrie.
All righty. Anytime somebody comes in and asks for a fun book that makes me feel good, bam, Nina Hill is. So Nina Hill is always checked out at our library, at our branch. I mean, you're rarely not on the shelf because that's my go-to when somebody wants to feel good and laugh. Nina's the answer for me. So can you give us any insights? Describe your next book that's coming out, The Adult Assembly Required.
Yeah, so Nina's in it.
Yeah, I know was that a plan all along? Did you, because you saw how big Nina was?
I wanted to write. The thing is, I have this habit, as you've noticed, of writing books where the previous characters show up all the time, right? And it's because it's just, I'd much rather go to a party where I know people, right? So it's just like I'm just writing about people I already know. So it just feels very comfortable to have those characters come back. And then I also just got in the habit, because I loved it when other writers did that. Like I always just am like, oh my God, that's so much fun. So I wanted to do it, and then it just became a habit. So in Adult Assembly, that sort of comes to a complete fruition. We have Polly and Nina are quite big parts of it. Although the new protagonist, Laura, is new to LA. She's just arrived. She's from New York. So she's arrived, she's sort of fleeing a not such a great background, and she wants to start over. So she arrives, like so many people do in LA, ready to start afresh. And shenanigans ensue, which is always what happens in my books. Blah, 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 shenanigans ensue. And she ends up in the bookstore on Larchmont, and they take her under their wing. So she's in it. Lily and Claire and Edward and all of that chunk of people from the first book, they're in it. I don't think Francis or anyone from the second book shows up. But basically all the fan favorites are all there. And we get to find out what has happened with Lily and Edward several years after the book, and what has happened with Tom and Nina, because this action takes place after the previous book. And Polly has a whole new romance, and it's all very exciting.
So I'm guessing then they're all in the same universe, obviously.
This is all still Larchmont universe, and then the book that I'm finishing now is the first one that isn't in Larchmont.
Okay, awesome. Yay, super excited. And so what are you reading right now?
I'm not, because I'm writing.
Because you're writing, that's right.
So I am not really reading anything except Agatha Christie and P.G. Wodehouse, basically. If I can't read my own genre when I'm writing, because I've either become incredibly depressed or because I'm worried I'm going to steal shit. So I don't do that. So when I'm writing, I don't read very much. And when I do, it's stuff I've read a million times before. So
okay, is there any other author that you can think of? I know you've already mentioned a few, but that are very witty characters, has your kind of humor for like read-alikes? So if people are like, oh, I love Nina Hill, I've read all of Abbi, is there something else I can read that's like that you can think off the top of your head? I know that was...
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know that people think Beth O'Leary is very good. She writes similarly.
Yes.
I always recommend P.G. Wodehouse, obviously, because he's funny. And then the bloggess, what was it called? Let's Pretend This Never Happened.
Yes, we actually just had a meeting with her too as well. And our nonfiction book club just read her first book. So
the first one, which I guess Let's Pretend This Never Happened, whatever it's called, made me laugh more than any other book in my life. I literally had to stop reading. My children were really small, and I had to stop reading it at night because I was laughing and waking up with kids. So I think she's a genius. I think she's
Jenny Lawson. It just
Jenny
popped
Lawson, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Lawson, that first book. The second one wasn't as funny, but still wonderful. The first one is unbelievably funny.
Yes. Yeah, she is.
Oh, and then Ali Broche, the Solutions and Other Problems, and Hyperbole and a Half. These are books that also.
Yep. Oh, good. I have some more to add to my 85,000 to read on Goodreads because I don't have anything else to read at all.
No. Or access to books at all.
No, none. I don't. Nope. And so, I mean, you've already said it to you, but here's kind of a fun question. You are stuck on a remote island. You have to bring a book. What would you bring?
Just one? Okay,
books, I guess.
Is there a limit? can I pick by author? Could I say like I'll have
Oh,
everything?
that works. Yes. Pick your author. What author would you
All
pick?
of Austin.
There you go. That's great. Are you one of those that read? I mean, you said earlier you read
I'm a
books
terrible
multiple
reader.
times. I do that too.
Yeah.
Do you always find new things when you reread them? Or is it just like a nice comfort thing?
It's both. Like,
Yeah.
you know, with Austen, I reread it. Pride and Prejudice is terrible. If I'm literally just sliding across it. Like at this point, it's not. I'm not reading. It's some kind of other thing that I'm doing, like grooming or something. It's like, you know, I'm just having the same words run over my brain so that I feel better. But like Sense and Sensibility, which is actually my favorite of hers.
Okay.
That one, every time I read it, there's something else. Like she's just so good.
Yeah. Now I have read Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, and I highly recommend those.
Okay.
It's the same exact thing. There's just a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, see, that could be really good. So yeah,
I highly recommend those. Those ones are fun. But yeah, so awesome. Good questions. And I think back to Jennifer there.
Okay, great. I think it's hilarious that you say Austen is your desert read, because it is for me too.
Sure.
I just, so cool.
Yeah, she's the best.
So I wondered, just in reading, I was told it would get easier recently. And some of your other books, I wonder, do current events ever inspire what you write about? Because I know that I was told it would get easier, came out, I don't think, a long time after the whole college admission scandal. And then Ina Hill also talks all about kind of like the changing of formats of books and a lot of how it was happening as it was happening. So I wonder.
That is a strange thing that does randomly happen. There's a storyline in the book I'm writing right now about Beanie Baby type toys, and then the other day I noticed there's a Beanie Baby documentary coming out on Netflix, and I'm like, I haven't even published the book. Like, give me a minute, like Jesus. So what was the question? Current events.
Wondered, do current events affect?
Generally speaking, as I've had my head under the sand the whole time since 2020, basically, or even earlier. 2016, I kind of went down and stayed down. So I don't, there's no pandemic in the current book. Like everyone working had to make a decision, right? Are we going to put the pandemic in the contemporary books, or are we not? Like, are we going to, and some people have really embraced it, obviously. I think even the new Jennifer Egan, I think she does a whole pandemic thing, but I have not, because reality does not intrude upon my books, really.
Good to know.
I don't need it. I don't. There are so many other great writers writing great, intellectual, intelligent things about current state of events, and that is not where I am.
Okay. Good.
Know your place, madam. That's what I say to myself. Know your place. Keep in your lane.
That's great. Well, you know who you are as a writer, and people relate to it, so it's working for you.
And in private life, I'm furious, but I keep it out of my work. So
that's great. How has being a mother affected your writing? I know reading other people's houses recently, I feel like Frances is like a neighborhood mom I grew up with.
Frances is 100%. That is the character that is most like me, and the one who has my life. For example, I'm about to run out of power on my computer, so I am now texting my husband, who is going to go get my cable, because that is the truth of my life, is that it is constant small disasters, lurching from one small disaster to the next thing. And so, yes, Frances is like me, and in general, that is what having children has done to my life. It's increased the amount of disasters and the amount of lurching required to go between. But also they're awesome and I love them. And now that they're all leaving, now that, I'm sort of really fond of them now that they're almost gone. But in the middle there, they sucked. Yeah, teenagers, no.
I also thought when I was reading The Garden of Small Beginnings, just how authentic, I'm trying to remember the protagonist's name right now, Garden of Small Beginnings, just how Lily, just how authentic her experience as a single mother and dealing with grief and everything is too.
Yeah, that was, yeah, I mean, at the time, that book, when I wrote that one, I still had little kids. And so that was very much what my experience of having little kids was like, you know, that you're basically trying to contain these little natural disasters who are like running around just causing trouble and living their best lives, you know, and you're trying not to set fire to them and ruin their tiny spirits, right? So it's all a bit of a challenge. And so for Lily, I felt like, yeah, I just wanted to be truthful about how challenging it is to maintain your own sense of self with little tiny kids. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And it's real world experience. We all relate to it.
Yeah. And I wanted to kill my husband at the time. So that's why I found the reason that book came about is because I was literally fantasizing about whether it would be easier to divorce him or murder him one morning, because he'd probably left a towel on the bed or something. I don't know. He was really pissing me off. And so I started thinking as I was driving the kids to preschool, like, well, and then I started actually thinking about what that would actually be like. And then as you calm down, you're like, no, he's all right. He does certain things. And then, but that's what started that book, was just trying to work out what that would actually look like. And the fact that you realize your children wouldn't remember him, that was the thing. When your children are little, you definitely realize that they wouldn't remember you at all, even though you love them with every fiber of your being and would lay down your life for them. If you drop dead when they were less than 5. And so that I find fascinating, right? The fact that you give to these creatures who literally have no full comprehension of you as a human being. So yeah, that's always fascinating. So that's inspiring. Like, what makes people willingly do that over and over again, you know?
I think that's great. I just wanted to ask that question because in reading your books, I just found like anytime there was any sort of opinion or actual real life situation of motherhood, I was like, oh my goodness, I see this actually happening, and it's so authentic, and it's great.
I'm fascinated by how we all parent together. It's hard.
Yes. Yes, it takes a village, as you yes.
Which is what the next book is all about, actually. Adult Assembly, that is what that book is about how as a young adult you feel like, you know, comes my husband with my power cable. Oh, you're so good.
I'm better than that.
You are, thank you. That, you know, that you get into young adult life and you feel like you're supposed to know what you're doing, you know, and you're supposed to have it together, but you don't. And that actually, for me at least, it was the people I became friends with in my 20s, you know, and the people that I worked with in my first jobs and the people I lived with when I was 23, 24, 25. Those are the people that actually formed the adult.
We lost her. We'll have to see if
Oh
she
no.
comes back. Yep. So hold on, everybody.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, if you have any questions, go ahead, throw them in the chat. And also please enter to win those awesome book plates and a new copy of Adult Assembly Required. I'm very excited. I have not been able to read it. People from past books into his new books, and it's always so exciting when you see that name and you're, hey, I know that. So please remember to do all that fun stuff as we sit and wait. She must not have plugged it in on time. Wah, wah. Too funny. Oh yeah, what PT Woodridge, I think, was the author, Amy, that she mentioned. PT Woodridge, I want to say. Woodhouse, PT Woodhouse. And I love that she's such an Austen fan. I think that's awesome.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think that is awesome, and I can totally see that, which is
Yeah.
also cool. Oh, it looks like Abby's coming back
Oh, she's
in.
back. Too funny.
Oh my God.
It's okay. I was like, oh no, she didn't get it in time. No worries. No worries.
I'm so sorry.
Nope. It's
So
okay.
sorry. Jeez Louise.
No worries at all.
I got so overexcited I had to take off my sweater. I was
Yes.
like, I can't get back on it now. I'm hot. And it's just crazy. So,
It's okay. You did a lot better than I would have. I would have been crying in the corner by now. So you're
no,
good.
I'm like I said before, lurch from one disaster to the other. That's all I do. So it's just
It's too funny because the way you talk about your kids and your family and everything, it reminds me so much of Shirley Jackson. When
oh my God, that book of hers where
yes, like you're talking about the raising
horrors or something.
raising. Oh shoot. I'm sure one of our ladies
So
on
good.
Lori, if you're out there, Google that for me. Savages, something with savages.
Raising Savages, Living with Savages. Anyway, it's so funny.
Yes, I am a big Shirley Jackson fan. I'm a big Agatha Christie. I did the same thing you did. I read through all of hers during the pandemic because I collect the old 70s paperbacks of hers because
Me
those
too.
covers are so amazing. They're so bad.
Yeah.
But you're talking about, and I'm like, why have I heard this before? It's Shirley Jackson. So yes.
It's really that there's a scene in that book where she's talking about having to change beds throughout the night. Like, and
Yes.
I had never read anyone talk about that before, the constant changing of the beds in the night, except that at every time she had to take her cigarettes and ashtray with her. So she would move and she'd be like, and I would pick up my cigarettes and my ashtray and I would go sleep in that bed. And I was like, okay,
Yeah. Oh, Shirley. She was wonderful. Oh, I love
and
her.
Irma Bombeck, right? Like, I mean, Irma Bombeck, I think one of the, again, a truly great writer in the English language who is not taken seriously because she writes about domestic things,
Yeah.
But she's a brilliant and very witty writer.
Oh, that's great. Yes, Life Among the Savages. Thank you, Miss
That's the
Lori.
one.
I knew she would find it for me.
So good.
So yes, highly recommend that one. That one is wonderful. So are you going to be doing any book touring or anything when Adult Assembly Required comes out in July?
I think so. I think that it comes out in May. It comes out May 7th.
Pardon.
Right. And I think there's a blog tour, which I'm not entirely sure what that is, but I think it's, I don't think I do anything. I think people just do things. And then there are some, this is the first time, she said dropping things, sorry. The first time I'm actually talking about Adult Assembly. So you are the official beginning of the Adult Assembly.
That's exciting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
So yeah, I think I have a couple of radio things.
Oh, that's fun.
But there's not like a big going around tour. I think people
say that probably doesn't. I mean, that's the one thing I really I guess that was good coming out of the pandemic is us being able to see our favorite authors like this that I never would have. I mean, I got to hear Neil Gaiman speak and Margaret Atwood and the amazing Rachel Maddow, and it's the one good thing. Yeah.
Zoom is great. I love it. Like all through the pandemic. I mean, I was told it would get easier. Literally came out like March 2020.
Yes.
It like came out and went, ooh. Like I think 7 people bought that book. Could have been one person bought 7, but
it was probably me. So I'm sorry.
So it didn't do, it didn't sell very well because there was one, who cares about college tours, right? There's a pandemic. Oh, and in answer to the question before I dropped off, no, I just it wasn't inspired by the school scandal, the cheating scandal thing.
Yes.
Because I was already writing the book, but when that happened, I was still writing the book. And I called my editor and I'm like, this is just not fair. Like everyone is going to think that I wrote it based on this. Not to mention that the what's her face, Macy, the lady. Help me out. Not William H. Macy's wife.
Oh, Felicity Huffman.
That girl, her daughter was in my kids' class at school. So I knew her only in the way one knows another parent, right? Like,
yes, but
still. So I was like, oh my God, they're going to think. But no, it had nothing to do with it. Just complete coincidence.
Yeah, bad timing. Oh man, that's too funny. All righty. I think now we're going to turn it over to some questions from the audience, if you must.
So kind of them all to hang out, despite the fact that I just disappeared for a moment.
I just kind of rambled about how excited we were that you were here, so it must have worked.
Even though she's clearly not capable of maintaining her power supply.
Yes, it's okay. Let me see here. We have Nancy asked, which I think you've already answered, if Nina was based on anyone you know, but you kind of answered that.
A conglomerate.
A little bit of you. Yep, she said Abbi was her very first book, and she absolutely loved how wonderful, quirky Nina Hill was. So there you go. She
Yay.
was wonderful, wasn't she?
You get to see a different side of her in the new one.
Oh, that's exciting.
That was fun. To write about a character you've already written about, but to write about her from someone else's point of view was really fun.
That's interesting.
You're kind of in Nina's head, in Nina's. You're not, because it's not first person, but you're kind of in her head. But in the new one, I'm able to have a character, the main protagonist meets her for the first time, and you're from her point of view. So you suddenly realize, and she's sort of a little bit wigged out by Nina, because if you think about it, Nina's a little bit scary. If you're not the kind of person who's like that, if you're not like, then she's a little bit alarming. And so the main character in the next book is a very quiet girl. She's a very self-contained person, and she's not someone who feels like she's very good at talking. Like, she doesn't feel like she's very witty. And that's something that she sort of, that's just one of her many things that she's dealing with, like we're all dealing with. And so Nina scares the pants off her to start with. And then they become friends.
Oh,
so
yay.
You get to see a different side of Nina.
That's awesome. That's exciting. Let me see what else. Jennifer, did you want to ask another one?
Sure. Christine is commenting on how she wants to visit Larchmont.
You should.
That neighborhood. Is that inspired by a real place as well?
Oh, yeah, it's a real, Larchmont is where I live. It is exactly as I describe. It is basically a little area that was all built in the 20s in sort of central LA, like down between downtown and, you don't know LA, so it doesn't matter. Trust me, it's here. And there's like one long shopping street in the middle that has all these bookstore and, various ice cream stores now and all these other things. So all that stuff at the end of Nina where they're fighting on the street, those are all real stores and real things. We have multiple ice cream stores. I don't know how we possibly support so many. And then literally there's a gelato store moving in. I'm like, why? I don't get it. So
it's hot in LA. I don't know.
I guess, but it's better to be the destination for like lots of great desserts than to be like, let's go there and get a hooker. So
yeah.
If you're going to
that's very true.
Be known for something, let it be ice cream.
Yes. There you go. That's very true. Amy said that she loves Nina Hill so much, and I recommended to her, of course, like I said, and it was exactly what she needed. And she's now in the middle of, I was told it would get easier, and she's really enjoying parts of it. And she was wondering if
disappointment. No,
she was wondering if are you reflected in any of those characters as well? Do you put a little bit of yourself in all of your characters?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't help it. I think it just, but really they do feel like very different, because my books are really, I'm only really interested in the characters. I'm not very good at plot, as you probably noticed. Like, it's not a lot happens. And that's just not my strength. I'm much more interested in people, why people do the things they do. And so I try and write characters who I really they sort of take off the page. They say what they are going to say. It's really strange. Like, I don't always know what they're going to say until I say, and then she opened her mouth and said, bleh. And I'm honestly surprised. The other day, I had a character literally told someone to F off. I really wasn't expecting her to say that. And yet that's exactly what she said. And I'm not being silly. That does feel that way when I'm writing sometimes, that they just, if you're enough in the head of the character, then they just say what they would say. And that's, ideally that works. It doesn't always work. Sometimes they all sound the same, and that's because I'm not doing a good job, and they all somewhat sound a little bit like me. That's when I need to go back and fix it.
Yeah.
But that's writing. So that's the job.
Yes, exactly.
That is it. You write the words down. That's great. But then you have to go back and change them all to the right words.
Yeah. I also have a few of my book club, me and Jennifer's book club ladies in here, and they want you to come to all of our book clubs because they think you're an absolute riot. So
Well, I haven't been invited.
Well, that's true.
So,
Wink, wink. No.
wait, I haven't. I actually don't belong to any book clubs. I've never belonged to a book club. I don't know whether I just missed the memo on the book clubs. But when they sort of started really taking off again here, I was already writing. And the last thing I wanted to do was I just didn't want to think about someone else's work, having thought about my own all day. I didn't want to rip apart. Also, I just don't have it in me to say anything mean about anyone else's book when I'm writing a book. I'm just like, I can't believe that she got it on the page. Like, there's words running all the way from the first page all the way to the last page. She filled the whole thing with words. We're good.
Yep, it's true. More than I could, for sure.
So,
well, you're welcome to anytime you want to come to any of ours here.
But I'd have to read the books, wouldn't I? You have to read the books. That's the problem.
I mean, do they still make Cliff Notes? I don't know. Are those still available?
Apparently, you can just go online now and they'll tell you everything.
Yeah, just Google.
Mhm.
There you go.
Well, it's interesting. You were talking about like how you form your dialogue and how sometimes it's you that comes out and things like that. Because Patty has a question about that. She said, have you ever had the problem where you have the character scenes clear in your mind and the dialogue, but then when you try to write it or type it, you just can't get it out?
I don't plan ahead. So I don't, I plan ahead very briefly, but I'm a pantser, not a planner. So I never know what's going to happen. So, I broadly know what's going to happen. I'll say, oh, well, okay, so now I need to write a scene where this person goes to this other place and does this other thing. But that's as far as I know. And then I just launch into it. It's terrible. It's not a good method. It's not working for me at all. But, it's what I've got.
Works so far.
Yeah, it's just painful. It's just very painful. And I wish that I was a bit more organized. I tried to be much more organized with this one I'm writing now. I have a pin board. I have cards.
Ooh.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, yeah.
That's awesome. Amy wants to know have your kids read any of your books yet? Your older kids?
They pretend, the oldest one pretends that she has, but she hasn't. And they haven't because there's nothing more cringe than your mother. And so your mother writing books is double cringe. And then your mother writing books that other people's mothers might have read and think are romantic, triple cringe. So no, there is no. They're proud of me and they like that I'm a writer. They find that amusing. They get it. They like that I'm around a lot. And they're proud of me. They're very nice about it. But no, I don't think they actually.
Maybe someday.
Maybe someday.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let me
It's
see.
just too embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
Everything is embarrassing.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Are you involved? This comes from Allison. Are you involved with the design of your book covers?
No. Although, in theory, the writer gets to veto. So if they come up with a book cover that I really hate, I can say no. I'm involved in it insofar as that they will say, do you have any ideas for the cover? And I will say no. And then they will say, well, come on then, think of something. And I'll say, well, how about... Yeah. And so then they bring me things I don't have any idea, and they show me, and I'm always pleasantly surprised. The exception to that is the new one. I came up with that cover, the new one. Insofar as I said, they were like, we don't know what to do on the cover. And I said, I know, let's put the title really big and have all these little people kind of putting it up because that's kind of what it is. And that's what they did. And everybody really liked it. So there you go. So that cover is mine, but
that's awesome.
This
came with narration. Do you get to pick your narrator for audiobooks, or is that the same kind of thing?
They do send me. They'll send me. Well, these days I try and get Emily. I think her last name. I can't remember her last name is. Maybe Rankin. The girl who did Nina and who also did Garden of Small Beginnings. So I try and get her if I can because I really like her voice and I think she has a really good. It just seems to work with the way my tone of voice. But no, but they have experts that do this stuff, and I let them do their job. I try and stay out of everything that I could possibly. I really minimize the amount of effort that I should make. So I try and stay out of everything that I don't know anything about. I'm gonna make it worse.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I think in a way, I mean, I thought maybe with Nina Hill, you maybe had some contribution to the cover. You see so many people online trying to mimic that cover.
I know, but that
Your
is just pure
bookstagram
luck.
account.
Yeah, that is pure luck, but it is, yeah, I love it when they do that. Like I keep all of that stuff. When people do really cool things like that, I'm like so touched and amazed that anyone actually took the effort to do this, that I keep all of it. Like I keep all of that stuff. And then I have a whole set of pictures where people are taking pictures of their animal with my books. And that is like that for me, because I have a lot of animals and that's like my number one thing in life is animals. That's the best. That is the best. Yeah.
I think that's all the questions. Is there any more questions? Oh, and Amy just also wanted to let you know that she loves how the characters think one thing but say another, the unspoken dialogue, especially right with it could be easier with the mom and daughter.
Thank you. Yeah, that I tried very hard. That was what I was sort of trying to write about in that book, because I was really going through exactly that at the time. Like my daughter, my eldest at the time was like 16 or 17 at the time. And so that book is also very personal, just because even though the main character has a much bigger career than mine, like she has a career that takes up a lot of her time. Mine, I have a career too, but it's not as all consuming in terms of hours. And so that I know a lot of people obviously who have kids and who work and for whom that conflict is really very real. And so I wanted to sort of talk about that a little bit, and how the fact that she feels like she's not doing a good job, but she's actually doing a fine job. You know, she's doing a fine job. And I liked being able to show how things that the mother had said to the daughter would never let on that she cared about it, but we could see from what she was thinking that she did, you know. So I think I wrote that book as a sort of prayer for greater understanding between me and my own child. And then, you know, hopefully other people found it amusing, but it's tough. Having a 15, 16-year-old girl is not a holiday.
Yeah. No, thank
And
you.
I've had 3 in a row. So my last is just turning 15. So I have one more 15 to go.
There you go. Almost done. I have a rabbit. So, I mean, he wants bananas every morning. That's my roughest thing.
Is he a teenage rabbit, or is he?
He's an old man. He's
Oh.
actually 8. Old man Leo. He's an old boy. So
What kind of rabbit are we talking?
he's a mini Rex. A mini Rex rabbit. He's the tortoise shell, but he's a little troublemaker, let me tell you.
No, they are. We've had rabbits and they are bent on chaos.
Yes, oh my God, that's a perfect. I'm surprised. I usually have nibble marks on my page because I'm not paying enough attention to them. So
Yeah, no, they're very forceful little creatures.
yep, that's wonderful.
I have guinea pigs currently. They're easy.
Yeah, I've heard that about guinea pigs. That
There's
they're
nothing to them. You can also just get a pet 2 balls of socks, put googly eyes in the front, stick them in a cage. That's basically what it is. So
there you go. That's great. Love it.
Abbi, is there anything else that you would like to share with the group today, or anything?
No, you're all lovely. I'm sorry I fell off in the middle.
No, you are fine. No, I just want to make sure.
Thanks for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to talk about the books.
Oh, absolutely. We're lucky to have you. Thank you so much. And it's nice to see somebody like very genuine and down to earth.
Yes.
What
So
else can you do?
Yeah.
All right, well, now I have to go and find a prom dress for my
Yes.
child.
Good luck with that.
Yes. Nordstrom's have let me down.
Yes. How dare they?
I know, seriously. All right, well, cheerio, chaps.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank
I
you
hope
so much
whoever
for being here with
Oh, you're
us.
welcome. I hope whoever wins the book enjoys it.
Yes, of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye, Abby. Thank you.